let's talk about your book now. So there's the 4 pillars of the book, which is success, connection, influence, and happiness.
Yep.
And there's a topic in there that you did a lot of study around, which is how the different generations are motivated. Because, yeah, success doesn't look the same for all of us inside our modern businesses now, does it?
Nope. Nope, not IT. And that's from the person that works on reception, because everybody's as important as each other, right? From the person on reception to the sales admin, to the assistant property manager, to the BDM, to the director, everybody's version of success is different. And then and for leaders in the space, it's made even more interesting because of the fact that we can't motivate people to operate to the best of their ability by painting everybody with the same motivation brush. It's really interesting.
Which is what we do, though. Yeah.
Oh, totally. Because partly through lack of awareness, but a lot of it's partly through lack of time. The perceived lack of time. Like before we hit record, right? We were saying property managers really struggle to carve out the time to learn, to get better, to improve, and all that sort of stuff, because they have got so much pressure to just get their stuff done, to tick the boxes that need to be ticked, right? So a lot of the time it's really difficult to be able to get them to pull themselves away from the day to day, right? So challenging. And I totally get it. The mother of my kids, she's got her own property management business, right? I'm quite close to the property management space personally anyway, right? So it's very difficult. But when you look at the different generations, there are much more clear definitions between each generation with respect to what lights their fire, right? And obviously, one of the fastest growing, obviously, and probably the biggest section of our workforce right now is in that Gen Z space, right? Because I'm at the bottom end, I'm at the top end of the millennial generation, millennials, but also Gen Zs, more so Gen Zs. The thing that we've all got to bear in mind is the fact that we are very much conditioned by our society, by the information that is around us, right? We're all defined by our environment. And for bottom half of millennials and Gen Zs, they have had so much more noise, information, news, stuff thrown into their face, right? Unavoidably, right? That it's made it incredibly challenging for them to understand themselves. It's that noisy around them that there is a huge identity crisis with particularly Gen Zs. And there's been countless amounts of studies that have started to bring this out to light now, right? There's one particular study though that looked at the different motivating factors, and for Gen Zs, because of the fact that they've got no space mentally, emotionally to be able to discover who they are individually, that their identity has become way more attached to a greater thing, a greater purpose. They have needed a greater movement in order to attach that, in order to make them feel validated in existence, right? So it's one of the main reasons as to why you're seeing so many more protests these days, right? Because they are needing something greater than themselves in order to give them an identity, right? So take the whole Israeli-Palestine conflict, for example. Now, we're not going to talk about it in that specifically, but there's a lot of people that protest about that particular conflict. And look, they've got all the best intentions. They've attached their identity to this greater movement because they feel that it's really important. And in the main, their intentions are good. Okay. I like to think that. However, if you were to go into a crowd of, say, pro-Palestinian supporters and show them a world map and ask them where Gaza was, they would not have a Scooby-Doo. They would not be able to point out Gaza on a map if it killed them, right? So I'm not saying that as a slight, as a negative on their behalf. But what I am saying is the fact that because they haven't had the space to understand who they are as humans, they are attaching themselves to greater things just in order to feel validated. All right. And so when we bring this to a property management space point of view and a business point of view, any Gen Z operator, right? Any Gen Z person that is in your workforce. Because one thing we were talking about before is the fact that a lot of business leaders are worried about losing their staff, right? Which is fair. because it's easy for people to make money these days. As long as you've got a phone that works, you can probably go and make money for yourself pretty easily. However, with Gen Zs, it's being proven now that unless we help them to attach their identity to something greater than themselves, they've got no reason to stay. Because in their heart of hearts, whether it's conscious or unconsciously, they don't feel validated in their existence within your organization if they don't have a strong connection to a greater identity that has meaning.
So how do we do that in our businesses then? Is that around our values? Is that around our mission, our vision? Is that what we need to focus on for that generation?
You were playing in the right ballpark. However, we as leaders, we have got to admit a couple of things first. First things first, when you talk about values, and I fell into this trap a few years ago. Right? So it's not like I'm talking from an ivory tower. Right? I'm talking from my own battle scars here. We see values as a selling thing, as like a hook, right? If we were to put it into marketing parlance, right? As a hook to get people into our game, into our business, right? Whether it's from a consumer point of view, we'll use cereal box words like integrity and transparency and commitment,
Authenticity.
all
Yep.
these sort of trumpet words. And the problem that we've got with that is the fact that they don't reflect who we are as individuals. If they don't reflect who we are as a person, as a brand personality, as a business personality, if they just reflect what we think consumers want to see, then we aren't really showing a unique identity that those Gen Zs are going to feel enamored to want to hook up to, right? So we've got to firstly understand that our values in the main, in a lot of cases, aren't reflective of the values that we exude as human beings. And values are not a sales tactic. They are the things that define our DNA, right? So as a business leader, the first thing that you want to do is have a look at your values if you've got some. If you haven't got some, then you can start with a clean slate. So let's see the positive spin on it, right? You got a clean canvas. But you need to basically put a set of values, right, in a line. I've got a really good little test. And then put your values on a line and then put other sets of values up above and below, right? And then ask your loved ones or people that you care about and respect and value their opinions of to try and pick which set of values are yours. If they can't pick who you are through those values, then those values aren't reflecting who you actually are, right? And I had to go through this myself when in my earlier form of my auction firm, like the values that we had were ambition and passion and determination and rah, right? And it sounds really morbid. It was actually when my old man passed away. And it's horrible it's rubbish that we as humans need to go through something crap in order to realize these things. But I was looking at myself, I had a quiet moment to myself because my mum was in hospital at the time as well, and it was start of COVID, so we're in lockdown. So I was by myself in my folks' house in the UK. And I was like, shit, do I even know who I am? And I looked at my values and I'm like, that isn't me. And so I did this real cool values exercise that I stuck in the book actually in the end. And the three values that came out were connection, fun, and simplicity. Not exactly the most corporate sort of selling words in the world, right? But man, it made me feel good that I could finally start to understand who I was and define it. And so your business identity, you need to treat your business as a human being almost in that respect. And if you're going to give yourself any chance of having Gen Zs become sticky, or like have your business become a sticky business where Gen Zs want to stay, you need to give your brand a personality, a sense of being, a sense of existence beyond what you do. And it
I love
starts with
that.
the tippy top. It starts with that leader, right? And if your values are in any way more real to who you are, you've got yourself a much greater chance of having people connect and stay. So that's the first thing that we need to do. The next thing you need to do from a recruitment point of view is hire against those values, man. Like, I know that people are struggling for staff and recruitment's a massive challenge and all this sort of stuff. And we're so worried about the here and now that we don't think about our business in 12 months' time because we're too busy trying to plug the gaps, right? We're too busy trying to stick corks in the holes and stop the ship from sinking, which is understandable. I tell you now, gang, a cork ain't gonna last that long. But if you can fix the plank and actually fix it properly, then it's way more likely to have your boat floating along for a lot longer, for a lot better, for a lot quicker, right? And so the recruitment side of things, and on that, making sure that everybody buys into those standards as well. So my partner, who owns cosmetic clinics up in Brisbane, she's absolutely phenomenal at this. Absolutely phenomenal. And pretty much all her staff are Gen Zs, right? All her technicians, apart from one or two. Almost all of them are, though. And she has got them working to a standard because of the fact that she lives to the standards and to the values herself. It is unequivocally who she is, right? But people have bought into the human being that's at the tip of the spear, and they've attached their identity to her. And as a result of that, she's had two people that left that came back like 6 weeks later. They were begging to come back.
Wow. How good.
So from a property management business owner point of view, it's not like it's a overly difficult, challenging fix. However, you got to understand that you can either keep plugging the gaps, you can keep finding corks to plug the holes, or you can fix the shit properly. Takes a little bit more time up front, a little bit more, not huge amounts, but once you've done it, oof, man, you feel better.
So what are some of those fixes then?
If you're ready to be a super organised, focused and productive property manager, buckle up, because Colmio is about to revolutionise the way that you work. Colmio is the driving force behind property management excellence in residential real estate. Now picture this, a comprehensive end-to-end system designed to be the beating heart of your property management tasks, manage your properties, owners and tenants, and handle payments, inspections, and even marketing listings without leaving the platform. Colmio is designed to be an all-in-one solution to all your property management needs. And here's the game changer. Colmio isn't just software. It's been awarded the most innovative prop tech scale up in 2023. Yes, you heard it right. Colmio has been recognised for their groundbreaking approach to property management software. How good is that? So property managers, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, dive into the future of property management with Colmio. You can book in a demo with the team today and go in their weekly draw for a Prezi gift card worth $100. All you need to do is to head to the link colmio.com/thatpropertymum, and Colmio is KOLMEO.
So, like I said, really understanding the DNA of your organization, right? And I'm saying that from both credibility and relatability, right? We've got to make sure that we pay attention to both. Is your organization exuding that competence that will bring confidence to both consumers and staff, right? Or we could just use the word consumers across the board, right? Because our staff are consumers as well of our organization, just as much. So do we understand the DNA of our organization? If we don't, let's work that shit out, right? If you're just doing it for a job, fine. Just fess up to it. Just accept it, that it's just a role. But then accept the fact that people aren't going to become emotionally or relatably attached to your organization. They're going to come and go. And for some people, that's a perfectly fine business model. So that's totally cool. But if you want to give yourself any chance of creating longevity in your team, you've got to have some relatability to it. And relatability is a two-way street, right? You've got to have the ability to be relatable too, as well. So understanding the DNA of your organization, that's step one. Once you've understood the DNA of your organization, you've then got to look at how you're broadcasting that, right? So, and that, again, that's in both internally and externally, because the way that we talk about ourselves is the way, not only how people are going to perceive us, but it's also how we're going to perceive ourselves. Language is massive, right? Language is huge, and words do genuinely change worlds. And so if the words that are in your prospecting kit, your listing kit, your within your organization or whatever, if they don't give you a little buzz, change them, right? Right. We are bound by legislation in our industry, right? We have to work to the legals. We have to work to legislation. That is the black and white that we can't mess around with, right? After that, do whatever the hell you want. We are so obsessed with keeping up appearances in our industry with respect to how we do things. We're obsessed with it. It does my head in. I fell for it, right? When reality is, and you can actually argue that AI is exposing this to a much greater extent. I love the fact that AI is making people nervous, because the people that are nervous are the ones that don't know who they are as a human being. AI is giving us an opportunity to become more human. It's giving us a massive opportunity to have a personality. Now, I'm not saying that as a cliched ego play in any way, shape, or form. Like, don't go jumping into pools and all that sort of cliched nonsense. However, coming back to my first thing, understanding that there's lots of people that know what you know. There's no one bit of kit that you've got that other people haven't got access to. Stop pretending like it is. If all you're selling is the stuff that you've got, you're not selling anything beyond what. And there's 3 different business types. I've been saying this as salespeople, but you can extend this to businesses. You're either a what business, a how business, or a why business, right? A what business just does what they do, and all they talk about is what they do, and all they talk about to their clients is what they do, right? The how bit, and they account for about 80% of organizations in the game, I would have thought. And they're the ones that are at threat. They're the ones that AI have got in the crosshairs, right? The next 15% are how businesses. And those businesses that are in the how are the ones that have got the ability to talk about how things work, both internally and externally, in a way that the receivers of said information can understand, in the language of the receiver, right? So for business owners, it is, are the things that I'm saying, are the directions that I'm giving, are the operations that I'm putting forth, are they understandable from a language point of view, from a communication point of view? Are they understandable for the people that I'm wanting to hire or that are in my organization? Or am I just talking from up on high, right? Making all that information relatable. The top 5% are the why ones, the ones that can relate every recommendation, every operation, every function, every bit of tech, every bit of kit. They can relate that to why their team exists, why those team players exist in that particular business, why it's important and relevant for them as individuals, right? As well as the business, or from an external consumer point of view, why it's super important when it pertains to the purpose that those people bought an investment property in the first place, for example, right? They don't just buy them because they're playing real life Monopoly. There is always a greater reason, right? They're not just buying Park Lane or going past Go and collecting $200. They are doing it for a much greater purpose, right? So those top 5% of businesses can relate all their actions to that purpose.
And I think property managers don't spend enough time, or business owners don't spend enough time in that why space, because that's the powerful space. That's where you build that deeper relationship with your investors.
Oh, man. It's property managers. And again, property managers can't be blamed for this. There is so much to do from a functionality point of view. So much.
Yeah.
So much that it makes this very difficult, right? It does make it challenging. Okay. And that's why a lot of the onus of this does fall upon the leadership, providing that they are not knee deep in functionality. But this is the thing. If you do want your business to exist, then you're going to have to make that extra bit of effort. Like, again, we were saying this before the show started, Kylie, didn't we? We said you go through these phases, these seasons, I think you called it, where it's got to be head down, bum up to a greater extent in order to have a smoother sail down the track, right? And for property managers, and even if you look at the individual property manager, an assistant property manager, right? If those assistant property managers, if they're just starting in the game, if they're just starting in property management land and they're doing it because it's a job and they're not that sure, they're just brand new, this can still apply to them. And it should do. If you can get it to apply to them right from the start, geez, they're up for a good career. They're up for a fabulous career. Whereas a lot of the reasons why we burn a lot of talent in our industry, whether it's sales or property management, is because they just buried it in what. And so there's no reward coming from the what. right? Which is why AI is taking a lot of it over, right? Because there's no real human, tangible, visceral reward for just doing what, right? But if you can help these new people coming into the industry understand how it's important and why it's important, right? For Gen Zs, for example, more people need to talk about the fact that what property managers do is such an essential service for humanity. And I ain't even putting source on that, right? That's just real. That's just fact. The basic function of having somewhere to live. That is a basic human requirement, right? We need to treat it as, and if we treat it as, we feel how important that is, and all of a sudden, these younger generations have got a reason for a being that is greater than their own existence, right? And if you can exude that as a key importance at the top of the business, right? That what we do isn't just what we do. Why we do it is because we have an important function in the way that humanity exists. And you can legitimately say that. No one ever does.
Yeah, I know. You're absolutely right. That's really got me thinking about how small we play as property managers and property management business owners. We play our roles so small. And I'm just going to spitball here, but I wonder if it's because a lot of the property management businesses have been just born off the back of sales, ownership.
It's an
And
interesting one, right?
yeah, and there hasn't been that conscious business planning model that's gone into a lot of property management divisions.
It's an interesting one, and it's a debate that really flared up during COVID, right? When all the salespeople started shitting themselves because all of a sudden because our identity is attached to what we do as well as who we are, right? Whether we like it or not, because we spend most of our lives doing our jobs, right? And so when that lockdown happened on March 28th or whenever it was, the amount of salespeople that called me that were normally made of Teflon that were just panicking like there's no tomorrow. And then all of a sudden, these PMs that were just seen as an afterthought in the shadows of the game, all of a sudden just started rocking and rolling. They were doing their thing. All right, what do we need to do? And everyone's going, oh, fuck. All of a sudden, everyone's going, shit. How much talent is in the property management space here? This is just insane. And it's always been there. It's just no one's ever given it the recognition, right? And so, but it's an interesting thing now because I actually think this goes beyond the whole sales versus PM thing. Right? I have this notion at the minute that we have created an industry of counselors when we should be treating ourselves as doctors, right? We should be seeing ourselves as doctors. We've become an industry of counselors that are like either order takers or functioners. They just function, right? They just do. Whereas we should, because of the real key requirement from a human functionality that we provide, right? A space to live, a safe space to call home, we should be taking ourselves way more seriously. One of the reasons why I think why society treats or talks about us as badly as they do is because we don't take ourselves as seriously as we should. That's not their fault, it's our fault, right? However, the reason why a lot of people get into the real estate space is for the Yankee Doodle, right? It's for the money, it's for the reward, it's for the financial reward. Whereas I'm not telling everybody to start singing Kumbaya around a campfire. What I am saying is the greater reward doesn't just come from the financial exertion, the financial reward that comes off the back of the functions that you provide. The purpose that you can gain, the sense of being, the sense of pride that you can feel not by building relationships, because I think that's super cliched and has led us down this counselor path, but taking ourselves seriously enough so that we command the respect of society, right? And it's not happened. It's not happening.
No.
And I think it can happen. And it all starts with us. And you can argue that salespeople, they don't see it as anything other than getting commission, right? Which is fine. People are driven by money. That's okay. But when you're in a property management space, and for a lot of salespeople now that aren't necessarily driven by money, right? The purpose of understanding that what you do is so essential to the people in this world, you best really start bloody perking up in terms of how you're rocking and rolling. You best start taking yourself a bit more seriously. You best start taking your jobs a bit more seriously, right?
Absolutely.
You don't, I mean, geez, if doctors were to act in the way that a lot of our industry would act, there'd be a lot of poorly people in the world. You know what I mean? So, but from a property management point, it's not, yes, you can absolutely argue that business leaders have always put sales on a pedestal and poor PMs and all this sort of stuff. But I think we should be over that conversation now.
Yeah.
I think we're over that now, which is why you're seeing so many more property management only businesses pop up, because all of a sudden they're seeing that there is tangible value beyond what they do.
Yeah.
If you want to be taken seriously, if you want your value to be taken seriously, then understand the value that you bring.
Yeah.
Beyond legislation.
Can I ask you a quick favour before you leave this episode? Now, we all know how important reviews are for businesses these days, and mine is no different. If you could spare just a minute to follow, rate and review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me. In fact, what would get me super excited is if you share this podcast with someone in the industry who you think might need to hear some of the episodes right now. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me or any of the products I have to help you start, grow or scale your property management business, head to my website, thatpropertymum.com.au, or check out the links in the show notes.